Hi, Martha. Um, I'm recording this video just to give you an update about the behavioral model that I've been working on. So this is the old model that I sent you before, and it was based on 17 different theories in total, and it kind of was like not really organized. It was like all over the place. So I did take your comments into consideration, and I been trying to just um, like make it more organized, and just and I also was reading more about the risk perception theories, and I added another three theories into the model. Um, but also overall the model just did shrink some, so I think it looks better now. The new theories that I added is a risk perception attitude framework, the health belief model, and the extended bottle process model. Now, the new model looks like this. Um, Anything in yellow is the one that I'm going to be actually testing in the survey. Anything in gray, like in step 1 and 2 in here, it's going to be those are critical parts of the model, but they're like too broad to be tested in a set of questions. So even that I recognize that they exist, I'm not going to be testing those like values, beliefs, personality, moods, cultural backgrounds, and all of that. So the model starts from the left, and this is stage number 1. Anything also on in green, those are just labeling, just to explain stuff. So there's not going to be any questions about them. Anything critical for the model is the ones with numbers. So this is, you see them 3, 4, 5, 6 in here. This is the ones that I'm actually going to be testing. So the model starts from a cultural, personal, socioeconomic backgrounds. Those leads to values and beliefs, and those lead to three critical components. First is risk perception, and risk perception is divided into severity of threat and probability of the threat. We have here also the second component is the responsibility, and that's divided into moral responsibility, which is what is if it, preparing for a hurricane is um, the moral responsibility for individuals or not. Conventional responsibility, which comes from our image in society, and if we want to be perceived as responsible people or not. We have here also that connects to the third component, which is the social norms, and that divided into social onto subjective norms, which is the influence of the smaller social circles like friends and family. And the other one is the social pressure, which is connected to other people within like bigger social circles like coworkers. And here, even though it's connected to conventional responsibility, but I think it's independent components. This one, would you, for example, we're gonna be asking about it in this way. Would you prepare an emergency kit if your family wants you to prepare one? So, like out of care of what people think, and the conventional responsibility here, it just concerned about your image and how people perceive you. So yeah, all of that leads to attitude, and attitude, and it's the first component in stage number 2. Second component would be efficacy, which is divided into self-efficacy and outcome expectancy. Um, well, do I think I can do it? Or, and this one is outcome expectancy is basically the plan efficacy. Do I really believe that, for example, preparing an emergency kit um, would be a wise or a good thing? Also, like, would it be effective? Um, to prevent hurricane damage, for example. And here we have a Q to action. That's a new component that I introduced. Q to action is basically a triggerer. That can, in our case, is it would be an email from the university talking about the beginning of hurricane season and that we need to take preparation actions to it. That leads to intention and also significant life experience, like knowing a family member that went through, survived a hurricane, or you personally being affected severely before by a hurricane. That can lead to intention immediately, and you can skip all of the things that we talked about before. So, significant life experience can lead to immediate intention. Um, and between intention and actual behavior, I believe there's things can it's not a really direct relationship. It doesn't really necessarily to be from intention to behavior a direct relationship. If you see the one in the middle here, that shows that it can be an immediate relationship, and you can just some people just move from intention to behavior immediately. However, some people try to self-educate and read more about, for example, where to get these stuff from. Google is one example of self-education, and sometimes observation, which is watching what your roommate is doing or preparing for an emergency kit and getting what they're getting. Um, you can also do both, so you can be self-educating and observing at the same time. So it's either you go immediately from intention to behavior, or you go from self-education to behavior, or through observation, or through both self-education and observation as well. That leaves you to behavior, and then once you do the behavior, you start. It will be more like a learning process for you. So you will try to self-monitor and also doing self modification to your behavior. And if someone from your roommates, for example, is not preparing, and so you preparing, and this is what leads to diffusion of innovation. Stage number 3 um, feeds back into stage number 1 and stage number 2. Because once you do the behavior, your efficacy, your attitude to the whole process changes. So that's why it feeds back to stage number 2. And also, it feeds back in stage number 1. For example, if you prepare an emergency kit and a hurricane really hits, and you see that it was really helpful, that it changes your knowledge at the very beginning of the background, so that changes parts of the values and beliefs. And if you survive a hurricane or survive a hurricane alarm, and you see that it did not really hit, or it wasn't as severe, or it was more severe, that also changes a lot in the risk perception component, whether it's severity or probability. We have here also in stage number 2 a small feedback, a loop of feedback, which is once you self-educate or observe, that also feeds back into your self-efficacy and attitude as well. So all of that is my new model. I know it looks a bit crowded even here, but once you take all of the components that I'm not going to be testing, we're going to be having only this one, which I think it's like much better than the one that we talked about before. Like I sent you the video about before. So that one is very, like I think it's organized, straight to the point. And again, I did not really eliminate any of the critical parts that I believed it was critical in the first model. It is all in there. So you can see 20 different theories in total in this one, and I think it would be um, so yeah. this is the model. Now I'm having a little bit of like a trouble because now I'm not only working on emergency kit. So now I'm gonna be testing other behaviors in hurricane preparations. The first one is gonna be preparing an emergency kit. The second one would be having an action plan, which is that could be if a hurricane hits, I think I'm gonna be going to my friend's house because I believe it's safer. Or I'm gonna be traveling outside Gainesville or outside Florida, like having an action plan in mind. The third behavior that I'm going to be testing is having a communication plan. If in case of a storm, who am I gonna call and how am I gonna call them? So that kind of behavior. So there's three distinguished behaviors that I'm going to be testing using this. But also there's a lot of questions, a lot of components in the model. So I was thinking about making stage number one a general questions because I think it's more like a general on the general side of like risk perception that would relate to three different behaviors and make it questions um, for number two and three very specific for each behavior. So I'm going to be asking about the self-efficacy, for example, uh, three questions for self-efficacy. Each one is related to a different behavior. However, questions in risk perception, for example, the one for severity of the threat, that would apply to three of them. Not really sure what do you think about this. I'm really looking forward to hear your feedback, and I'm trying to make this work as soon as possible. I really appreciate your help, and I wouldn't be taking much of your time. Thank you so much, and I hope to hear from you soon.